critics desperately wanted you to believe the hype was over. Legacy media, jealous veterans, and a stubborn coaching staff, they all prayed for her downfall. They spent weeks orchestrating a massive, calculated public relations campaign designed to completely humble Caitlin Clark. They screamed from the highest mountaintops that her historic spotlight was fading, that casual fans were tuning out, and her slow start in a broken offensive system was proof she was not the savior of the league. They tried to tear her down. They actively tried to sabotage her and reel her in. But Caitlin Clark did not just survive their toxic, targeted campaign. She completely humiliated them on the biggest, brightest stage imaginable. This is not about some minor ratings bump or just a successful regular season game. We are witnessing an earth-shattering shift in the history of professional sports viewership. The official numbers are finally in, and they are so massive, they have completely vaporized every negative narrative that the Indiana Fever front office and the league's old guard tried to push on the public. The Caitlin Clark effect is not fading. It is not just surviving, it is exploding right in the faces of those who foolishly doubted her star power. If you listen to the mainstream media this past week, you would think the league was in a state of total crisis and fans had completely abandoned the Indiana Fever. The media relentlessly pushed a fabricated narrative that Caitlin's visible frustration with Coach Stephanie White's sluggish isolation offense was actively driving viewers away. They claimed her attitude was a major issue. They claimed the off-court drama was overshadowing the basketball, but the cold, hard truth just dropped, and it completely destroyed their carefully built hit piece. Reports show the WNBA Commissioner's Cup game garnered 10.79 million viewers, making it the most watched game in history. This is absolutely massive news. I do not know what network broadcasted the game because I was in the arena, but the place was packed. Some people even tried to make a big deal out of it being Pride Night. 10.79 million viewers. Let that unbelievable number sink in for a moment. Nearly 11 million people tuned in to watch Caitlin Clark. That is not just the biggest game of the season. This is not just a record for the Commissioner's Cup. This is the single most watched game in the history of the league. It is absolutely devastating news for the critics who tried so hard to silence her. These viewership numbers are larger than the NBA playoffs. They rival major primetime football broadcasts. And every single one of those 10 million viewers tuned in for one reason, to watch number 22 launch shots from the logo. This record-shattering viewership completely flips the power dynamic in Indianapolis. For weeks, head coach Stephanie White and general manager Amber Cox acted like they held all the power. They publicly scolded Caitlin on the sidelines, forcing her into a slow, half-court offense that completely neutralized her incredible passing and transition speed. They foolishly thought they could break her spirit and force her into their outdated losing style of play. But you cannot bench the engine of your franchise when nearly 11 million people are tuning in. You cannot yell at the most valuable, financially lucrative athlete in the world when she is single-handedly breaking every single television record on the books. But here is the most frustrating part. Here is the tragic reality that those 10 million viewers had to painfully witness. While Caitlin Clark delivers the biggest audience in the history of women's basketball, Stephanie White is still running a horrific, completely ineffective offense. Fans tuned in expecting a high-flying, elite offensive masterpiece. They wanted to see the Iowa version of Caitlin Clark, but instead got a masterclass in offensive incompetence. Plenty of fans complained that the game was boring. They did not like the format, and they hated what they saw on the court. And Stephanie White did a terrible job of putting together any kind of functional offense. Sitting in the stands, I could tell Caitlin Clark was dealing with an illness. She started slow, but overall the game was still entertaining. But that is coming from someone who was actually there. Being in the arena and hearing the crowd is a completely different experience than watching it on television at home. The game was a massive hit in terms of ratings, but the on-court product was a total slog. It was a sluggish, disjointed, frustrating mess. And why? Because Stephanie White stubbornly refused to adapt. Even with the world watching, even with 11 million pairs of eyes judging her every move, she refused to run basic pick and roll plays. She refused to run off-ball screens to get Caitlin open, letting the opposing defense aggressively face guard her, physically challenge her, and beat her up for 4 straight quarters with absolutely zero adjustments. And what makes it worse is the complete disregard for her physical condition. Reports were circulating that Caitlin was battling a severe illness before tip-off. She clearly was not at 100% struggling with physical issues that would have sidelined any other player. She was sick, and her slow start was because her body was failing her, but she still suited up. She still stepped onto the floor to carry the massive weight of a historic broadcast on her shoulders. She gave everything to an organization that refuses to protect her. And how did the opposing team treat her? With the same brutal, unchecked physical beating the WNBA has seemingly allowed against her all season long. Carrying this massive burden physically, combined with a toxic lack of support from her coaching staff, is pushing her straight toward a breaking point. Other teams know Coach Stephanie White won't protect Caitlin. They can aggressively attack her without fearing any real offensive adjustments or hard screens from the Fever's completely absent bigs. It all culminated in a deeply frustrating moment that perfectly showed the absolute nightmare Caitlin Clark is living through right now in Indianapolis. She is getting targeted. She is taking hard hits to the face and getting knocked to the hardwood, all while carrying the entire league's viewership on her 22-year-old back. Where is the outrage from her coaching staff? Why isn't Stephanie White aggressively defending her star to the officials? Why isn't the front office demanding the league crack down on the blatant targeting of their franchise cornerstone? There is absolute silence from the Indiana front office. They are content to watch Caitlin take physical punishment while they quietly pocket the cash from the 10.7 million viewers she brings to their failing franchise. This is undeniable mismanagement. The sheer scale of these ratings proves beyond any doubt that Caitlin Clark is the most valuable asset in the sport. She has totally embarrassed the critics who claimed her hype was dead. She has completely shattered the toxic narrative pushed by mainstream media. But she is trapped in a broken system that actively holds her back. The Indiana Fever front office is officially on the clock. You cannot hide your deep incompetence behind record-breaking television ratings forever. Eventually, those 10 million viewers are going to realize the issue isn't Caitlin Clark's ego. The real issue is a head coach running a broken offense and a front office refusing to protect the greatest gift women's basketball has ever received. The records are shattered. The critics have been thoroughly embarrassed. But the fight for Caitlin Clark's freedom on the court is only just getting started. With 11 million people watching her every move, the Indiana Fever can no longer hide their failures. The spotlight is blinding, and the pressure is real. Now the whole world is watching to see if Stephanie White and Amber Cox will finally swallow their pride or stubbornly sink with the ship they built.